Well, more than 350,000 migrants without valid immigration papers and refugees came to the European Union in 2016. The European Border and Coast Guard Agency, Frontex, is responsible for protecting the EU's external borders. We're joined now from our DW studio in Brussels by the head of Frontex, Fabrice Leggeret. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for your time today.
Good morning.
Thanks to the EU-Turkey deal, there was supposed to be a halt to migrants crossing into the EU from Turkey. Why are so many still making the trip?
Well, the EU-Turkey deal was successful in the sense that now the number of irregular migrants, irregular border crossings has dropped significantly. We have approximately 100 people arriving per day, while before the deal we had more than 2,500 per day. The trouble now is that there are, as you said, many migrants waiting on the islands. Approximately 15,000 or even more are waiting for the asylum procedure. Frontex is worried about the humanitarian situation. I've been reporting this situation for weeks to the authorities. Commissioner Avramopoulos said that the Commission gave fundings to Greek authorities and humanitarian organizations in order to improve the living conditions of the migrants there. So the problem is a humanitarian one, and as you showed, well, there is a problem. For instance, no school. Frontex mandate is of course not a humanitarian mandate, but we contributed. For instance, 2 weeks ago we made our mobile office available for school, so that migrants' kids could have some lessons there.
Okay, we're seeing some progress in that area, Mr. Leggeret, but still some 181,000 migrants arrived in Italy in 2016 from North Africa across the so-called Mediterranean route. Now, that's the highest number ever recorded, and it's 20% more than 2015. It's not a problem that's being solved. The migration flow is continuing. What do you say to that?
Well, correct. The main concern in terms of new arrivals of irregular migrants, so let's say irregular border crossings, is the flow from Libya to Italy. And there we see indeed an increase by 20% in 2016 compared to 2015. The reason for that is the situation in Libya. We have a situation where we have thousands of migrants waiting there. The smugglers and the traffickers are very active in Libya.
Are you doing anything to crack down on the smugglers? If I could jump in there, Mr. Leggeret. What about the smugglers? Is the EU doing anything to crack down on them in Libya, for example?
Well, in the course of its activity, Frontex contribute to the fight against criminal organizations. We collect personal data. For instance, when we disembark the migrants in Italy, in the hotspot, we debrief them, we screen them, and during these interviews, we can collect personal data which are relevant for investigations. If they give names or phone number or license plate or whatever, that can be used by police investigations. And then this personal data are shared with Europol and with Italian police. That's what we can do.
I'd like to jump in on the identification issue, if I could. The largest group of migrants coming in are from Nigeria and Guinea. They don't have any right to refugee status. They would be economic migrants. Is Frontex returning them? How does Frontex deal with the refugees who are economic refugees?
In Frontex mandate, there is indeed the possibility and also the duty to support member states in returning irregular migrants, so economic migrants, after they are denied residence permit or asylum status. In 2016, Frontex tripled the number of returned people. We organized 230 joint return flights from Europe to, let's say, non-EU countries, and we returned up to 10,700 economic migrants back to countries of origin. But this is a national decision, meaning that we can only return economic or irregular migrants if there is a national decision made, for instance, by Italian authorities in the Italian hotspot or by Greek authorities in the Greek hotspot. But we can also support other member states. And for instance, I can report that we have now a very good and extensive, intensive cooperation with Germany. And there we see that we support also Germany with the return operations.
Mr. Legere, I'd like to ask you about the Frontex efforts at sea in the Mediterranean. Are you going to step up your efforts there to stop the flow of migrants in boats that are often not suited to that journey at all, where we're seeing an incredible loss of life at sea?
Well, at present time, we have 12 vessels deployed by Frontex in our operation, in a Triton operation in Italy, between Italy and Libya. We also have the same number of vessels in Greece to make sure that there are no search and rescue cases needed there. We have saved lives up to 40,000 lives were saved last year by Frontex. The problem is when the migrants are at sea, it's too late because they put their life at risk. So there is a need to fix the problem in cooperation with African countries. And Frontex is going to deploy in spring this year a liaison officer to Niger. We're going to post him or her in Niamey with the possibility to cooperate with other EU actions there, the EUCAP Sahel mission, for instance. So we are trying now to have this cooperation on the African continent in order to save lives, because we also have to think about lives lost in the desert, because everybody's focused on the Mediterranean. But
there is a lot of risk in the desert as well. And I'd like to ask you for a last brief question there, Mr. Legere, and that is, what do you need most right now? Do you need diplomatic help, or do you need more naval vessels, more people on the ground in North Africa in desert areas as well? Which one's more important right now from the EU member states to help Frontex?
I think to help Frontex and more generally to help the European Union to be more efficient in tackling this Libyan problem. And I think we need a political input. We need diplomatic efforts in order to really change the game. Because the situation in Libya, for instance, Frontex contributed to the training of the Libyan Coast Guard. But of course, as long as there is no, let's say, effective possibility for Libyan Coast Guard to monitor the waters or to carry out border controls, then we are still in trouble. So what we need right now is something which is more at political level, political decision in the EU and diplomatic cooperation with African countries.
Mr. Legere, thank you so very much for being with us today. Thank you for your comments. That was Fabrice Legere, the head of Frontex, that's the European Border and Coast Guard Protection Agency. Thanks so very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.